Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. Tonight I'm going to be painting some flowers with a rock wall, and we're going to go into a little deeper dive about how to do rocks in our little mini lesson. I've got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's man in chat for our live show, so if you've got questions, you can ask those in chat, and we'll try to answer them. Let's get started. Alrighty, whoop, my canvas is off there. I'm using a 9 by 12 inch canvas tonight. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. I should say that first. We've been gone for a week on vacation, and I came back with allergies, so my voice is gone, but that's okay. I'll power through. 9 by 12 inch mixed media canvas board tonight. I haven't done anything to it, so it's just plain old white, ready to go. For our brushes, for our rock wall, you're going to want some sort of texture on your rocks. So I'll probably be using a sea sponge, a toothbrush, or a fan brush to do some splatters, and then some sort of a texture brush to do some other textural elements. So you're going to want to grab that. You'll probably want a glove too for that part because it can get messy. And then kind of a large flat to do just base in some of our large areas. And then for our flowers, you're going to want an angle brush or a round brush or a filbert, something like that. All right. Then let me go over our colors. I've got carbon black, burnt umber, burnt sienna. Which one is that? Yellow oxide. Cadmium yellow light, cadmium orange, Quinacridone Magenta, Dioxazine Purple, Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo blue green shade, Phthalo green yellow shade, Phthalo green yellow shade, Unbleached Titanium, Titanium white, and gloss glazing liquid. Those names are tricky. They will trip you up. All right. They have to be so long and complicated.
Artists are difficult
And
sometimes.
Phthalo is even, those are shortened from phthalocyanine. So it was like...
You have to say it like Sylvester the cat.
The short version. Oops. Oh, shoot. I just
dumped water.
Dumped
everywhere.
water all over.
I'll go get some towels.
Okay, that's okay. Thanks. Yeah.
I'll switch you back here
Okay.
so you can paint.
Okie-doke. Thanks. All right. So to start with, I'm just going to tone the canvas with some color. That'll give us something for our rocks to kind of show up against. And I'm going to go with a fairly dark-ish color for this. Our upper part is going to be all greenery, so our rocks aren't going to really show up here, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and do like a burnt umber on most all of the canvas here. And this you can do ahead of time if you want to. I just didn't do it ahead. Go ahead and spray your canvas also to give it a little bit of moisture. It's just in that corner over there. Yeah.
I'll just kind of do that for now.
Thank you. There's Mark's hand.
Thumbs up.
All right.
Subscribe.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that got it. All right. So I'm just going to dab it on here, not really worried too much about where it's going. We're going to do a little mini lesson. We've been doing our mini lessons. I thought of going two ways. I thought I could do flowers, but this one only has like 3 different kinds of flowers. So I kind of want to do flowers on another lesson when we're doing a painting that has a lot more different kinds of flowers. So we'll save that for another lesson and talk about petals, shapes, and things like that. But for this one, I thought we'd just do rocks and kind of how to build up texture with rocks. So that's what we'll be doing in our mini lesson tonight. And I'm gonna dab all this on here. This is just a small brush. It's not one to cover very much, is it? Okay, that's good enough. And then while that's still wet, I'm going to grab some unbleached titanium and some yellow oxide, and I'm just going to dab it in this bottom area here and add some other colors going on in our rocks in this area. And I don't want a ton of these flat lines, so what I may do is get another large brush and just kind of brush over the whole area to kind of smooth it out a little bit, but we'll see how we like it as we get going here. Yellow oxide. We just want to have other colors in our rocks besides just the burnt umber, burnt sienna. This is all going to be kind of underneath everything. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to set that brush aside and grab my texture, my sponge here, and do some texture on here. And while this is wet, I can either wait for it to dry or I can do it now while it's wet. It doesn't really matter all that much. You'll just have to know that you'll be lifting a little bit of the color if you do it now. So if you want it to be really dark underneath your rocks, or like if you're doing rocks that are a little bit darker than these ones, then you may want to wait for it to dry completely before doing this part. But I'm going to go ahead and just jump in here and do some. And I think I'm going to get a little bit of green. And I'm going to dab that into my sponge. And we talked about using a sponge in our foliage lesson last week too. We used the time before when we did the forest lights painting. This sponge is starting to break down a little bit. It's kind of losing some of its. I may have to get a new sponge here soon, but I'm going to go ahead and just go over some of these areas and create some texture. And I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way up. This will also smooth out that roughness of my initial layer there. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to let Mark take that and dry it for me. And while he does, we're going to work on our little mini lesson here. Oh, I'm going to need it.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, so here's our little mini lesson. I broke it down into 4 steps. So our first step was laying down color. So just basically any colors that we want, we're just going to lay those down as our initial layer on our rocks. And you can add as much texture here as you want by using a more like a stippler or that kind of thing. I'm just generally, when I'm first laying down my colors, I'm not worried about texture yet. I'm just worried about kind of getting down the base mid-tone that I'm seeing. So it doesn't have to be like the finished color. It's not going to be the lightest tone. It's not going to be your darkest. It's just going to be kind of somewhere in the middle. And these rocks have a lot of reddish tones in them. So I'm going with kind of a reddish mid-tone. And I'm just going to fill in that all 6 boxes here. And we're going to start out all in the same place. And then as we go along here, I'm going to do more to each box, so that by the end here, this one will have the finished product in it. Okay, so there's our first layer. And then our second layer was the texture, right? And sometimes I will use like really dark colors. Sometimes I'll use lighter colors. It depends on kind of where my mid-tone's falling. If it's on the lighter side, I might add darker textures, but basically you just want texture that's going to show up against whatever color you've got here. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that in all of my boxes here. I'm trying to take off some of that. Got some really weird repeat pattern happening there. So all of these, except for this first one, are going to get this texture. All right. Get a little bit more. But again, you don't want to go too dark too soon. So we want to keep this this texture kind of still in our midtones, not too dramatic yet. We'll get dramatic with it later, but this is just going to just start to build up a little bit of texture in our rocks, okay? Then the next step is going to be splattering. So this is where I'll get like either the lighter or the darker colors. I'm going to go ahead and cover my... It's good Mark brought these paper towels in because now I can cover this up right here. All right, so I'm going to start to splatter. And not all rocks will have speckles, but I tend to like to add them even when they don't. Like these rocks that we've got here on tonight's thing don't have a lot of splattering, but I still like to add it. Whoops, got my thumb in there. That's okay, we'll just call that texture. There we go. And usually I'll do like a couple colors. So usually I'll do like a darker color and then a lighter color with my splatters. So let's go ahead and do another layer that has some lighter color splatters. Okay. There we go. This really is just all about building up layers. And if you kind of do this, just trust that process, because at first these definitely don't look like rocks yet. Starting to get that kind of feel of rocks, right? They've got the little bit of a texture, but they're definitely not going to be rocks yet, right? I'm going to set this aside because we've got to let the splattering dry. We'll go ahead and work on our regular painting, get it up to where we're at right now. So we're going to be adding splatters to this. And then we'll let this dry and work on the other. So we'll go back and forth with our lesson today, but I kind of wanted to just kind of have a visual and something that you can practice on your own. We are kind of doing these like mini lessons with each video, just to break down what I'm doing in the larger tutorials a little bit more so that you can actually practice it on your own at home in kind of an easy, understandable way. Just give you something to kind of look back and go, okay, you know, even if I don't have time to do this whole big tutorial, I can at least like do this little mini lesson and kind of work on these different skills and practice them. Okay, so with splattering, what you want to do is make sure that you're adding lots of water. You see how thin this is. If I don't add enough water, it's just not going to come off of the toothbrush. And I'm holding the toothbrush so that just my thumb is pointing over the top and then facing it down, straight down towards the canvas, so that, I'll turn it sideways, awkward angle, but so you get a better view of it there.
Side camera for it.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, it is not coming off of there. What is going on with it?
You need me to go get my toothbrush?
No.
Okay.
It just may be still too wet. No. Okay, I'm going to get a different toothbrush because that one is just not cooperating for some reason. I'll use a fan brush. Fan brush is the other option, and with the fan brush all you have to do is kind of tap. So I'm just going to tap. So I did the light color first with the toothbrush. I'm not really sure why my toothbrush wasn't working there. It was kind of foaming up for some reason, but okay, so that looks good.
Maybe it has
So
rabies.
just getting some good texture there as a base. What'd you say?
Maybe it has rabies.
Maybe rabies foaming. Mm-hmm. Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Be careful over there.
It was definitely not wanting to do whatever I was telling it to do. I think I'm going to toss my sponge there. It's not... It may be that the bristles are breaking down a little bit. They're little... If your toothbrush isn't firm enough, it just kind of flops around. It won't do what you need it to do. So I think that looks good. I'm going to let that set off to the side. Go back to this one. These aren't completely dry yet. Let me just go ahead and dab over them though, because I want to dry them and move on. Here, it'll probably lift off some of the color, but you can do this on purpose. Sometimes I will do this on purpose when I splatter, just lift off some of the extra color on there. It kind of creates an interesting like halo effect. It'll take off some of the color but leave like a ring of color down. The center part isn't dry yet, so it'll lift off and then leave kind of the dark outer ring where it's already dried. Okay, that looks good. All right, so initial color, stippling, splattering. Now we've got this, which will be our outlining. So we'll take a, let's go ahead and grab this brush. I'm going to go ahead and grab a 3/8 inch or liner, whatever, it doesn't really matter. We're going to get a darker color and we're going to outline our rocks. And so just kind of figure out where you want your rocks to be. And I'm going to maybe do this one like that and have little, doesn't really matter. We'll go ahead and just let these kind of bleed from one to another here. You can have your rocks be a little bit more angular if you want, or you can have them be more brick-like where they're kind of, you know, obviously stepping down from one to another. Our rock wall tends to, it looks like in ours is kind of got just random shapes, so I'm going to go ahead and do random shapes. And I don't want too much of the mortar, you know, the mortar area, this area, to be too thick. So I'm just going to kind of think about my shape of my rocks and leave just a little bit of that mortar showing. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got kind of our rocks outlined. And I'm going to go back in and go a little bit darker now with some of this. Really define and outline. And wherever we don't paint is our rock, right? So this is the in between our rocks. So I want to smooth out any kind of weird angles like that, you know, where a rock may not make that shape, and just kind of round it out so that I have kind of good shapes on my rocks. All right. So all of these. These look pretty good. All right, looks good. So we'll leave that one as is, and we'll move on to this one. Now, what we're going to do is start adding some shadows to our actual rocks. So this time I'm going to get a shadow color, which I'm going to use the same color as I used in my mortar, and then go with a little bit of burnt sienna, and I'm going to add that at the bottom and around my rocks just a little bit. So a little bit on the top and more on the bottom, because the bottom is going to get less light usually, just generally. So I'm going to start to kind of build up around and add some shadowing. And don't be afraid of going really dark, because that area where the mortar and the rock meet oftentimes is very dark, and it can be hard to tell where the rock starts and, you know, stops. Also, you can load your brush so that the color is disappearing as it goes up, or I can use my finger and kind of wipe off, so I can go along and do like that and then wipe off the part at the top so that it's got a nice smooth transition. This area just keeps kind of coming off. I'm just going to add a little bit black there. My mortar was still wet and I'm painting over it, so it's not wanting to stay, it's wanting to lift. Okay, so there we go. So there's with some shadowing. Let me go ahead and shadow this one. I know this is adding to our lesson here, time, but hopefully it'll kind of, seeing the progression here, will kind of click. It seems like it kind of helps sometimes to see these mini lessons and then see it done, because then you kind of recognize the steps a little bit easier. Okay, a little bit of that at the top, not as much. I'm going to get some of that black and add it to that. Seemed to do a little bit better. So adding a little bit black. This can be part of our shadowing, adding the shadows in, right, from the previous lesson here. Adding our shadows in. And then the last step is adding our highlights. And I'm going to grab a small textured brush and grab some light color. It doesn't really matter, just as long as it kind of fits with our rocks. And I'm just going to tap along the tops and about halfway down. And sometimes the texture will kind of be in the middle, you know, depending on where the light is hitting it. So you can go a little bit farther down if you need to, but don't want to go over my shadow area too much, because I want this to kind of have that 3D effect where it's popping this rock out. And you can also repeat any of these steps that we've done before. So if you decide you want, you know, a little bit more texture here, like I'm using this brush and sort of stippling it, tapping up and down like we did with the foliage last week, which I forgot to use the terminology stippling. I was calling it foliage, but the actual technique is called stippling. So I should have mentioned that last week when we were doing all the stippling or the foliage, you know, with the different brushes. But all right, so that looks good. And then I'm going to use different colors and do some stippling with different colors. So I'm going to use some yellow oxide here and add some to some of the colors. And really, I probably should have added like a final layer, which would be a final glaze over all of the rock and just kind of to tone it. But like I said, you can do these as many times as you want to get that full 3D effect, but you can see the difference here in the progression of our techniques. And I'm going to go ahead and just tear all this off, and you can see, hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to see when we have it separated out. Oh, it's tearing. Uh-oh, don't tear. Tore my paper there. It got kind of wet, and so it was softened. There we go.
Not too shabby.
Yeah. So there we go. There's the different steps in creating your rock wall. All right. So let's go ahead and put it back.
And in chat, I've posted some links to some of your previous tutorials that have rock walls.
Oh, good.
And things like that in there. So if they want to check that out too.
Right.
Teamwork makes something work. I forget. Ice cream.
Ice cream work.
Yes.
Nice.
That's a better saying.
As long as it's non-dairy, I'm down with it.
Soy ice cream.
It's so sad. So sad. All right, I'm leaving. I'm not leaving my dark color here. I'm just going to kind of do whatever shapes I want, you know, here it doesn't really have to follow my picture. That's just sort of we kind of know the steps, you know, so you can make your rocks whatever shapes and sizes you want them to be. But I think that'll be pretty good here. And that's all I'm gonna do, okay? So I'm gonna get my big brush here, get my darker color, and maybe a little bit of green. I'm seeing a little bit of green in my dark areas, and I'm going to add that in. And again, this is going around my rock, so wherever I don't paint is where my rock is. And I'm going kind of transparent with this because I want to see a little bit of my background texture. Maybe. We'll see how much of it is visible when we get this done, but we'll probably add more of our dark shadows when we do our shadow layer on our rocks. We'll add more shadow to this area too, our grout area. Okay, looking good. I'm just using the corner of this large flat, but you can use whatever brush you feel comfortable with that fits in your area that you're painting. I don't feel like there's like a right or wrong brush to use for any of these techniques. You just use whatever brush works the best for you. If you don't have the same brushes as I have, that doesn't mean you can't do them. It just means you may have to alter your techniques just a little bit to get, similar results. But you may have to get a little creative. I spent a lot of years in that space. Could not afford the good brushes or the good paints or art supplies. I get it. Totally get it. But you can still practice and do stuff even if you don't have the fancy materials. Lots of stuff you can still do. I'm going to make that one a little bit bigger right there.
So what colors did you use to do the...
This is burnt umber. It's got a little bit of green and a little bit of black in it too.
Okay.
Okay, that looks good. You can see I didn't do that in solid, and so now it's got all this nice texture and stuff going on in here, so it looks like there's
shadowy stuff.
Yeah, things going on in that grout. It doesn't need to be solid either. I didn't mention that when we were doing our example, but that is important too. All right, I'm going to let this dry, and I'm going to work on some of the greenery up here just to start to add a little bit of a base of color up there. To get a little bit of purple in my my Phthalo blue and Phthalo green. I'm just going to fill in this area with that coming down. Now that I kind of know where my rocks are starting, I'm just trying to give this a little bit of time to dry too. Okay, looks good. Let me go ahead and grab some burnt sienna, burnt sienna, a little bit of this burnt umber on my brush, and I'll start to darken up the bottoms of some of these rocks, go around them. Just soften up those edges a little bit, and just use my finger to kind of smush it out a little bit. Burnt umber, can use green. I'm seeing a lot of colors in these rocks, greens and different things, and I'm not being super careful and clean about it because I do want to have some, these aren't like super smooth rocks, so I want to have some areas where the dark is kind of maybe a little bit in the middle there, so I'm like breaking up the large areas of rock with other shadows. Looking good. It's like when you start to get to this point and it starts to look like rocks, somehow your brain forgets that you've seen this happen, and it just starts to become like sort of mysterious. Or if you like skipped to the video to this part, it could be like, oh, I couldn't do that. But you guys have seen this whole part. You've seen the steps. You've seen how we've done it. There's nothing, particularly difficult about it. It's just following these like little basic steps and building these layers up little by little. And then you get to this point and it starts to magically look like rocks. It's amazing. It's kind of my favorite part of painting rocks. It's one of my favorite things to paint besides flowers. Just really like painting rocks. They're really fun. I think they just come together so easily and they look so neat, It's like it's not that hard to do, to get them to have really interesting shapes. I'm kind of darkening up these ones in the corner just so that they don't feel like they're falling off the edge. I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit darker there with some black underneath some of these. Nope. Get some black here.
Thank you for protecting us.
Yeah, 50s. Good guard dog. Got the doodle on duty. He's a cavapoo. Okay, it's looking good. Let's keep on going up here. Burnt sienna. Burnt sienna has been a good color. It seems like it's just dark enough to kind of add a little bit of something. Other people's dogs barking back at Fitzy.
Sometimes right up to the TV.
Oh, really? What's happening? Add a little bit of light color there to bring that back out. Start to add in my light color. I'm glazing with my light color, so you can glaze, you can stipple, it it's up to you what you decide to do with your rocks here. You don't have to do it exactly like I did. Like I glazed with the dark and then I stippled with the light color, but you can also glaze with your light color like I did over here. And then stipple, and then, so there's any number of techniques that you can use here to kind of help build up the look of your rocks, whatever seems right. I'm kind of just blunting down these edges so they look like they're rounding and going down into the mortar by adding this dark texture here. Okay, that looks good. And I'm going to use my black. And that black just really sets that rock in at the base there so that it kind of lives in that spot there. I'm going to kind of go back over this a little bit right there. Okay. Looks good. And then let's go ahead and grab my stippler here. I'm going to get some of the yellow oxide. And I'm just going to stipple, and I'm going to use my finger and just tap off. Push that color around a little bit. There we go. What did you say?
I was just quoting Chef John.
What did he say?
The old tappa tappa.
The old tappa tappa. I might use a different brush. I'm not liking the look of that stippling on there. Just use my angle brush and kind of dry brush a little bit. Just use very light touches and maybe use a little bit of the burnt sienna and yellow oxide with that color. Here we go. And so you gotta be careful with this because you can tend to cover up all your texture with this layer. So we have to kind of be careful not to do that and kind of put it on lightly and, slowly add up our layers. I could have gone a little bit lighter with my initial layers, and that, would have helped. Maybe I won't have to add so much of this lighter color, but I think it's working. Some of these I'm going to leave a little bit darker because they're going to be kind of under all the foliage, so maybe they're not going to catch as much light. And some of these up here might be a little bit lighter. Okay.
Kind of reminds me of when you did that mural.
Yeah.
With all the rocks.
Oh, yeah. Did a whole mural of...
Because I had to help.
Rock wall. I know. It was... Well, it had been the second day.
Mm-hmm.
I had been painting for probably 12 hours a day, something like that. It was a lot. And wanted to go home. I didn't want to stay another day, so... I had a lot of rock wall left to do, so I put Mark to work. So he's got experience doing this. The sponge.
Sponges, yep.
Big old mural.
Was that BY?
That was at Pasta Grill in
Yeah, but was
Jersey.
that before YouTube?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Stuff like that, yeah.
For
Back
sure.
in the day.
Yeah, I hadn't done a mural in a while when I did YouTube. I think I did a couple for Suzanne, like a couple at her home, and then that was it. Just a friend of ours. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm going to stop there. We'll put in our flowers. This will be a nice backdrop for our flowers. It's a little bit darker than the one in the photo, but I think I like it, so I'm not going to do a whole lot more with it. I think I'm going to leave it. So our flowers, yeah, I think I'll use this 3/8 inch. And let's go ahead and do our stems on the flowers. There's some vines that are coming down. I'm just going to get some yellow oxide, add that to my my phthalo green blue shade. No, phthalo green yellow shade, sorry. And run some vines down here. Just give some place for our flowers to meander. Using the edge of my brush here to create these lines. These are coming down here. Okay, looks good. You can barely see them. I'm going to get some darker green here. Phthalo blue and phthalo green. Make that purpley color. I'm going to start by just tapping the tip of my brush down. We've talked about leaf strokes before in other videos. In fact, I think we did this in our brush stroke video. Maybe the petals video. If we didn't, I apologize. But basically, I'm just setting my brush down, and this angle brush does the work. So I just set it down and kind of lift. If I tap it straight up and down, it'll make a circle. But if I leave it kind of just at a slight flat angle to the canvas, then I can get these like leafy strokes. I'm just going to kind of set my brush down and do like that. I've got a little bit of both colors on there, so I've kind of grabbed a little bit of my lighter color on one side and the darker color on the other, so I can get some of these kind of like two-toned leaves. Just saves me from having to go back in and add more color later. And I just want to fill this whole area up with just leaves and leaves and more leaves. And really some of the leaves are bigger than others. I can kind of angle them out so that, and I would practice this on paper too. Just kind of practice your leaf shapes and see, till you get comfortable with doing them. I'm going to get some lighter color here and do some lighter colored ones. being particularly fussy with the shapes because so much of this is going to be covered by our flowers. So I'm mainly just trying to kind of get some green down here and not really worried too much. I'm kind of the areas where there's a lot of dark though. I'm going to go back in with some of my lighter colors so that I can see the contrast, you know. So that's why I'm adding some lighter color here. Just dabbing, pulling, and I'm kind of turning my brush side to side as I'm dabbing to get different shapes of my leaves. And I would say don't get too caught up in the perfect leaf shape, because very rarely are your leaves going to look just right. They're not posing for pictures here. They are turning and twisting and doing their own thing and growing toward the light. And so a lot of times you're going to see a leaf that just looks like a line. It's not going to look like a flat leaf. And if you do a flat leaf on either side perfectly all the way up, it's going to look odd because it's just not going to look like what it looks like in our photograph here. So just going to keep that in mind and try to keep your brush strokes a little bit random. And don't worry too much about it just looking just right, you know. Every now and then you want a leaf that looks like a leaf, obviously. But the rest of them you can just kind of dab and do lines and little random things, and that's going to actually look better than if you did every single leaf like that over and over again, you know. It's going to look more realistic. Okay, so there we go. We've got a pretty good amount of leaves on there. Pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and start adding our flowers, and we'll add more leaves in again at the end. I'm going to grab my purple. My purple is kind of the main color. I'm going to add a little bit of Ultramarine Blue, so it's a little bit more of a bluish purple. And I'm going to add my white. And I'm going to just use what's on my brush here. These flowers are those little, I think they're lantana, so they have like a little cluster of dots that all live together. So I'm just going to dab, dab, dab in like little circles. Right. And try to keep them generally the same size. And then they're going to be overlapping each other too. So there's going to be some areas where there's a lot of them kind of just making a one big blob. And these are the dark mid-tones here, so we'll add lighter colors to these. But I want like a little bit of my darker, just a little bit of the darker with this. But I'm not seeing a ton of the really dark purple in these, so I'm going fairly light with this color, a little bit kind of mid-range. And I might add more roses than what we have here. We'll see. Get a little bit of white right there. Some white.
it's really quiet.
Sorry.
It's
Just
okay. We're thinking
repeating.
so I can let everybody know about Patreon.
Okay.
Now I'm going to clear my throat.
I know.
But thanks to all the people who've been supporting Angelo over the years on Patreon. And if you're new here, it's where you can support the channel, but also get extra content like traceables. We do bonus videos. So there's a bonus video at the $5 level right now that we do one Saturday a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also get the traceables that are at the $2 level, which are traceables only for the free YouTube videos. And then there's a $10 level, which gets all that, plus also a challenge image where you work on that each Thursday throughout. It could be a month or 2 months or 3, depending on the content and the size, but it's much more in depth and longer videos. So check it out.
Yeah, you said that the $2 that the traceables are only available for the $2 level, but that's not entirely the YouTube video.
The free
So there's traceables for all videos,
right?
But only the $10 level gets all of the traceables because they get access to all the videos.
Right.
You get access to the traceables that are on the same level as you or have access to.
Much better explanation.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just want to make sure that people aren't like, what? You don't get a traceable if you join the higher level?
Yes, you do.
You do. You do. They come with traceables too. Right. But we don't have access on the traceable level to, like the traceable level just gets access to the public videos, not the the special bonus videos and things. They don't get those traceables because they don't have access to the videos, so it's really not going to do them any good.
Good job.
Sense. All right. Just want to clarify.
No, that's very good. Yeah.
Clarify that.
Okay, so I'll go out and come back in.
Okay.
The 3 main levels are.
I do have an angel level. I think I have 1 space left in that level, maybe. But it's a level where I do a chat with you one-on-one once a month. So to go over.
And all the slots for the $1 million level are still open at the time of recording.
Here's the challenge video right now that we're working on in the $10 level. We've got about 3 more weeks left on it. So work on it on Thursdays. And we're going to be filling up the rest of this with more coral, but this area is pretty much done. So you get an idea of kind of what we're doing there. It's a lot of fun. So those challenge videos are ones that take usually 8 to 10 hours, depending on what, we're working on. And we'll work on it for about an hour to 2 hours every week until we get done with it. So, and then let me see. Show the 2 last bonus videos if I can get them. Grab them. 2 of the last bonus videos were that one and that one. Those are about a 4-hour video usually, 3 to 4 hour video that we'll do on a Saturday, just for our patrons at the $5 or higher levels. So it helps to kind of see what we're talking about as far as what.
You get them all.
Yeah, and then the $10 level gets it all. Gets access to all the videos. All right, that looks good. Let's go ahead and add some yellow flowers. So I'm going to grab my yellow and some white because white will help make that yellow more opaque. I'm leaving it fairly thick here, and I'm just going to dab it using the angle of my brush. And these are like jasmine, so they have kind of that spiky look to them, the flowers do. So I'm just going to kind of dab these little spiky sections. Maybe I want a different brush. Not sure. Fitzy's been waking up from dreams and barking lately, her dog. He's been having intense dreams and he'll wake up barking at stuff. And we're like, what are you? He like runs out and barking. Having stressful.
So do we have any
Squirrels invaded apparently.
exactly and the bunnies? So do we have any idea what any of these flowers may be called?
Well, these ones are lantana and these ones are jasmine, I believe, and then the roses. So
Lantana.
we've had them. We usually get them in the yellow and orange, red varieties. I like to get them because they hang like this. They hang down. Okay, I'm switching to a round brush. This is a 2 round. And I've had jasmine too before, but I haven't kept it alive over the winter. I had it for a while on the front porch, I think. Wow, it's been a long time. It climbs.
I'll take your word for it.
The honeysuckle, and I like the honeysuckle better because it bloomed longer. So I kind of let it replace this. Okay. Looks pretty good. Just mainly want those kind of, they have those like tubular clusters, and this may not be actual jasmine. It looks a little bit different from what I remember, so maybe it's not jasmine, but someone else might know. Okay, that looks good. And then let's do some roses and we'll be pretty much done. Gonna get some magenta.
So I look up jasmine in the thing and go to images, and so the first images are of a Disney princess.
Yeah.
Then a flower, then more Disney princesses.
Good luck now in your searches. You're gonna get
Then some rice.
Disney princesses showing up in your
Yep.
Google feed now. You're welcome.
So yeah, jasmine can be yellow. Right? It's very dangly.
I just want to see the picture of the actual flower. So the roses are going to be kind of generally circular with some random kind of petals sticking out. Yeah, that's jasmine. Yeah. I think it's probably a type of jasmine. So yeah. Cool. All right.
Carolina jasmine, maybe.
I'm not sure. I'm gonna sprinkle these roses around in different places here, just wherever I see an opening that they seem like they would fit.
So we just have to put the disclaimer in that we are not botanists and therefore don't take anything as factual.
I'm sure I'll get people telling me.
We're not ChatGPT. Don't base your doctorate on anything we say. Quote your sources. Angela and Mark said it was.
Don't. Okay, so I think that's good. I don't want too many roses there. I'm going to get some white here. And I'm going to kind of go around my roses and just sort of create a little... I want a little bit of both colors on there, so a little bit of the dark and a little bit of light. I'm just going to kind of highlight the outer edges to create that rose shape. Just very little. And if you want to, you can go back. This, I probably could have another option for these roses would be to do this lighter color first and then go back over with the darker color, because the green underneath this is kind of tinting them pretty dark. They're not a real vibrant red, you know, or pink or whatever. So if you want more of a vibrant color, you can do these areas where you want your roses in a lighter tone, and then come back and add the darker color over the top of them, and they will brighten up a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to get my green and my yellow. Maybe a little bit of white. I'm just going to find some leaves that I want to make brighter. I'm just going to go over the top of some of what's already here. Maybe add some leaves where there aren't any. Just pull out some. And this is where the shape does matter. So I want these to be leafy shaped. Right, I'm just going to set it down and kind of pull so that it gets a like a little tip of a pointy tip of a leaf. These are the ones your eye's going to see. You're not going to really focus on the ones that are kind of underneath and all jumbled together. These ones that are like brighter and sort of on top are going to catch your attention. So you want them to be the right shape and size. All the other ones are kind of just background noise. And if my leaves are not kind of coming together for me, I'm going to twist my brush to a better point. And then I'll get better points on my leaves. Whatever your brush is doing, like when it's loaded with paint, so if it's like loaded with paint and like this, when you come down here to do your leaves, it's going to have, you know, this kind of white fuzzy look to your leaves. But if your brush is coming to a nice point, then when you do your leaf, you'll get a better point on it. I'll just kind of keep that in mind. If you're having trouble with the leaves looking right, you may just reload your brush so that it's a little bit more pointy. Get some turquoisey color here. Let me add some turquoise. I've got some purple on here. That's okay. Just wanting to break up the lines a little bit. This is really fun too, because you can do any colors that you want on this. This is really easy to, like, you know, personalize to your own tastes, to your colors in your house. So if you wanted more, you know, just like earthy tones, you could do white flowers, and you've got this rock wall, and maybe add a little bit more of an earthier green, like a more neutral green, like an olive tone or something like that, and you could end up with like a really neat neutral colored floral garden. You know, don't have to just go with these colors, but just kind of follow the same guidelines that I'm doing here, you know. With the yellow one, it's mainly about shape. They're all kind of just basically the same color. There's not a lot of variation in the color. With these purple ones, we're doing like two to three tones of values, you know, kind of mid dark and light tones, you know, to get them built out. So you could do that with any color, is what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be purple. I'm going to add a little bit of pink to my purpley ones and do a little bit of pink in some of these. That'll help kind of tie in the purple and the pink so that they don't look so different from each other. And then I think I'm going to add a little bit more of my magenta. We're almost done. That was only an hour. We did fast today. Did good. I didn't end up using my orange. I wasn't sure if I would make my magenta flowers more salmon, but I decided not to. So I don't think you're going to need that orange unless you want more of an orange in some of these flowers. You see going over how much brighter that is, going over those light colors with just a thin glaze of that magenta color there. And then let's go ahead and get some white and make a really light pink this time. So this is going to be probably another shade or two lighter than what we had before. And then this will be our kind of final highlight layer on my roses. Just using the very tip and just kind of doing these little semicircles around the outer layer and thinking about it like kind of like bricks. You're find a clean place in here. Sketch. Here we go. So our rose shape is going to, the center is going to have these little center's going to have these little series of like overlapping like that, almost like a circle with a line through it. And then where these two meet up, we're going to do ones outside. And then where these two meet up, we're going to kind of tuck our petals in between the two gaps. So kind of like that all the way around until you get kind of that basic shape. This is a very, very generalized version of it, but so for these roses I'm kind of going like this and then just doing some larger petals out, and that's really all I'm doing. But when you see it on here, it really like works. I don't know why, but you know, less is more sometimes. Just I'm not actually doing all the petals that I just showed you. I'm kind of just picking a few and highlighting just a few of them so that there's your eye is going to fill in the rest, and oftentimes you'll do a better job than you will painting it, you know, like your own imagination will kind of fill in the rest for you. So don't feel like you have to have these all just be perfect, you know. Same thing with these flowers. I mean, literally they're just dots, and your eye is, you know, filling in the rest and making a story out of it and making them look like flowers. I get a little bit of the darker color and kind of going underneath some of these, adding some structure to some of these to make them a little bit more round, like a cluster. And I think we're about done. I might do a little bit of centers in my yellow ones here. Maybe like a little bit of the bright yellow over the top. Just because I added white the last time. So maybe do some with a little bit brighter yellow. Kind of brighten them up. But yeah, we're pretty much got it. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't see anything else that I obviously want to change. Get a little bit of pink here. I'm going to dab in the centers of some of these yellow ones. Just a little bit of pink. Pinky orange, really. It's kind of a salmony tone. Might do some really bright light green over here. I see some like dabs, so I'm gonna just add some little dabs of light, like buds, whatever catching the light. Okay. And if I wanted to, you could add more highlights to your rocks. Like my rocks are fairly dark compared to my photo. But what do you think? Do I need to add more highlights to them? You don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it looks decent to me, but
Looks good to you.
I see what you're saying.
I'm gonna get a stippler here and just add some. Here we go.
Well, while
Just a little extra texture.
you're doing that, let's do some super chat.
Okay. Got some super chat?
Yeah, we got one.
Yay, super chat!
Alrighty. Oh no, that's not for you,
Casimir's like, thank you. Thank you.
So our super chat tonight was from Paula, and she says, "Thank you for all your help.
Oh,
Love you both."
thank you, Paula.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Very sweet.
I like it.
Good belated birthday present. Buy Mark some dinner.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to get off here before I lose my voice entirely, and hopefully it'll be better by next week.
By Thursday?
By Thursday, yeah, that's true. I have to be in on Thursday. But
Go ahead, cough.
no, it's okay. I can wait.
No, that's fine. I'm all right.
I'll wait.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a comment. Share it on your social media. That helps us more than anything. Yeah, we'll be back. We thank you so much for watching and hanging out with us tonight. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.